On May 19th, 2018, 24-year-old Jastine Valdez was doing paperwork to renew her residency permit. Then she headed to the gym. After her workout, which ended at 4:20 p.m., she was going to drive home. Her mother, tears, sent the girl a text message and asked her to buy bread on her way home. Justine went into the store, completed her purchase, and went to the bus stop. She boarded the number 185 bus, which was traveling to Bray. After 6 p.m., the bus arrived at the village of Enniskerry, where Justine lived. The girl got off the bus and walked home. Her home was in a rural area, and the journey from the bus stop was not a short one. The walk home from the bus stop took 15 to 20 minutes. It wasn't difficult for a young, active girl like her, who traveled this route almost every day and knew the area well. But that day, Justine never returned home. Her mother looked out the window, waiting for her daughter, but she was still gone. The woman began to feel anxious because her daughter was always in touch. If she was late or changed her plans, she would contact her mother. Tears tried to call her daughter, but it was useless. Justine didn't pick up her cell phone or respond to messages. Panicking, the woman jumped out of the house and walked toward the bus stop, but she never saw Justine on the way. She wasn't at the bus stop either. Tears asked people on the street if they had seen her daughter. Several people confirmed that they had seen Justine get off the bus, but no one could say where she was now. She had headed in the direction of the house and soon disappeared out of sight. The girl had a striking Asian appearance, so she was easily spotted by passers-by. She was dressed in gray leggings, a white t-shirt, sneakers, and a dark jacket, all in a sporty style. But where was Justine, and what could have happened to her? The worried mother ran around the streets, desperately searching for her daughter and asking witnesses if they had seen where she had gone. But she found no trace of her. In desperation, she called the police to report her daughter's disappearance. Detectives took Tears' statement and began searching for Justine. While the police were searching, detectives looked deeper into Justine's life and social circle to see if she might have run away. Jastine Valdez lived with her parents, Teresita and Daniel Valdez, in rural Enniskerry, Ireland, a beautiful, cozy place with a population of less than 2,000 people. Born in the Philippines to a poor family, her parents, in search of a better life, moved to Ireland. They settled well and sent money to support Justine, who was living with relatives. In time, they earned enough to bring their only daughter, whom they loved more than anything, to Ireland. In 2015, Justine joined her parents. She was a smart girl, aspiring to get a good education. She went to university, studying accounting, and worked part-time as a waitress in a restaurant in Bray. She also babysat neighborhood children to help support herself and her family. Justine's family lived in the servants' quarters of a huge mansion owned by a wealthy and influential family. Her father worked as a gardener, and her mother was a housekeeper. Justine was responsible, hardworking, and loved her family dearly. No one believed she would ever run away. Plus, she had few close friends due to her busy schedule. The police contacted all her acquaintances, but no one knew where she could be. Justine was past her teenage years and had never shown any signs of wanting to run away from home. She was quiet, homely, and had always kept her parents informed of her whereabouts. That day was no exception. She and her mother exchanged 63 messages. The last message was sent at 6:24 p.m. when she got off the bus. As detectives continued their investigation, they received a disturbing tip from a coworker. Just minutes after Justine got off the bus, the police had received a call about a female motorist who witnessed a male driver pushing a girl into the trunk of his car. The girl, described as an Asian woman with dark hair, was wearing sportswear and resembled Justine. The witness, driving with her 12-year-old son, saw the suspicious black Nissan Qashqai parked with its headlights off. When she passed by at a slower pace, she saw the girl lying in the trunk, screaming as the kidnapper tried to close it. Frightened, the woman drove a safe distance away and called the police. Soon after, another motorist saw the same scene. This time, the girl was sitting in the back seat, tapping fearfully on the window. He didn't realize what was happening at first, but later, when discussing it with his wife, he understood something was wrong and reported it to the police at 7:20 p.m. Another driver also reported seeing a suspicious Nissan driving erratically about 6 kilometers from Enniskerry. Patrol officers arrived at the location provided by the first caller and found Justine's broken cell phone and a bag of bread on the side of the road. This discovery alarmed investigators, suggesting that the girl was indeed in trouble. Detectives concluded that the kidnapper had attacked Justine as she was walking home from the bus stop. He first tried to put her in the trunk, but when she resisted, he placed her in the back seat and drove off to an unknown destination. The black Nissan Qashqai was put on the wanted list. Patrol cars searched the area, and helicopters scanned from the air. By then, it was dark, making the search even more difficult. In the end, nothing was found, and the search was postponed until the next morning. At dawn, the search resumed. Detectives re-interviewed the female motorist, and she provided a detailed description of the suspect. Investigators gathered information on all black Nissan Qashqai vehicles registered in the area. There were few, but one driver raised suspicion, 40-year-old Mark Hennessy, who resembled the kidnapper. The police officers went to his house to check. The man was not at home, and the door was opened by his wife, Mikola. She told an amazing story. She said her husband had left for work yesterday at 7:30 a.m. as usual, and came home after 3 p.m. He had lunch and left again at 5:30 p.m. for a bar. The husband had planned to have a drink and relax after a hard day's work, but never returned home. His wife was unaware of his whereabouts. This information raised even more suspicions about Mark. Investigators began looking into the man, Mark Hennessy. He seemed to be a positive character from all sides, a model family man, husband, and father of 2 young daughters, the youngest of whom was born 8 months ago, in September 2017. He came from a respectable family and lived in an affluent neighborhood with other young families. Mark worked as an estimator on construction sites and earned a good income, supporting the whole family. The man had no criminal record and no problems with the law. It was hard to imagine that such a model member of society could commit a crime. However, the police officers were well aware that such things sometimes happen. Mark could be a wolf in sheep's clothing, appearing to be something he was not. Police officers went to the bar where Mark had gone last night to make inquiries about him. The staff confirmed that the man had been there the night before, but not for long. He had a beer, watched some soccer, and left because he found the match boring. Mark seemed quite normal. Toward midnight, he showed up at the bar again, but this time, he looked very anxious and out of sorts. Investigators reviewed the bar's CCTV footage and were satisfied that the staff's statements were credible. Mark spent about 10 minutes at the bar. He left at 5:40 p.m. and headed to his car while talking on the phone. He then got in and drove away. However, after 11 p.m., he returned to the bar, chatted with a couple he knew in the doorway, and left again. Detectives were puzzled as to where Mark was between 5:40 p.m. and 11 p.m., what he was doing, and why he never returned home. By then, investigators had requested CCTV footage of the very bus Justine was riding in and examined it. It turned out that Mark's black Nissan had followed the bus, half an hour after he had left the bar. He had literally followed it during the day, which made his behavior even more suspicious. The search for Mark's car and the missing girl continued. No one doubted that the disappearance of the 2 people was connected. Mark was now considered a suspect in Justine's kidnapping. Investigators couldn't track his cell phone consistently, as it was turning on and off. Mark called his wife once and told her he wasn't coming home again. It also turned out that Mark had even met with his family, who begged him to turn himself into the police, but he refused and left. Mark's parents relayed this information to detectives. They tried to track him down again, but he was always one step ahead. The police then asked for the public's help through the media. They asked anyone who knew the whereabouts of Justine, Mark, or his car to come forward. It helped. One woman who was watching the press conference saw a similar Nissan Qashqai on the road, with a driver who matched Mark's description. She followed him to make sure it was really him. The woman followed the car to Cherrywood Park, where she took a closer look at the driver. She then called the police and reported it. Arriving police officers found a man behind the wheel, covered in blood. Mark refused to get out of his vehicle, waving a knife in a threatening manner. He forced the police officers to use their firearms. The bullet hit him in the shoulder. After pulling him out of the car, they found him conscious. As they began to examine the vehicle, they did not find the missing girl. Police officers began asking him where Justine was, but he remained silent. Medics rendered aid to him, and he was taken to the hospital. Doctors fought for his life in the hope that he could tell where the kidnapped girl was. However, it turned out that the bullet had ricocheted and hit him in the head. Soon after, the man died. It turned out that the blood on his face and body was his own. He had several fresh stab wounds on his arm and neck. Police speculated that he decided to settle the score with a knife that was in his car, perhaps because he was afraid of being exposed when the police caught up with him. Everyone was disappointed. Although they were able to find the suspect and his car, they could not find the missing person, who was their main target. However, they did find a note, the contents of which were difficult to make out because of the blood. Police officers were only able to read the words "Sorry and Pease Castle." Apparently, it was an indication of Justine's location. The police almost didn't believe the girl was still alive, but continued to search for her. The parents prayed for their daughter's safe return home. Police officers conducted a thorough search in a wooded area in the south of Dublin, which was indicated in the note near the castle. First, her purse with documents in Justine's name was found. Then, on May 21st, the girl's body was discovered in the woods. She was identified as the missing Jastine Valdez. An autopsy on the body revealed that the girl had been murdered on the evening of the abduction. The cause of death was determined to be manual strangulation. The medical examiner determined that Justine had been raped. Another strange detail was found as a result of toxicological examination. It was possible to establish the presence of a very small amount of prohibited substances in the girl's body, which had entered after her death. However, it was not possible to determine how or why they were there. Mark was found to have a large dose of these substances in his system. It turned out that he had recently abused alcohol and substances, which is probably how they entered Justine's body. Mark's family life was deteriorating. He and his spouse often quarreled because of his substance abuse, and he had accumulated debts. It also turned out that he had installed the dating app Tinder and actively corresponded with different girls there. Acquaintances mentioned how he flirted with female bar patrons. Mark's DNA was found on the victim's body. Now, all police suspicions of his involvement in the kidnapping were confirmed. Detectives concluded that the murder was sexually motivated and that Justine was a random victim, someone who had simply crossed paths with Mark when he was looking for someone to target. He followed a bus, saw the girl, and kidnapped her in broad daylight on the street, without even stopping when he came within sight of several witnesses. He then drove her away, raped, and strangled her. Upon studying the phones of both the victim and the criminal, investigators found that they had never met, never communicated, nor did they share any mutual acquaintances. However, upon closer examination, the detectives' opinions changed. It turned out that Mark had traveled the same route the girl often took, at the same times. This suggested that Justine's murder was not a spontaneous crime. Mark had been following the girl for a long time. That day, he made his decision and attacked her. He had likely been watching her, studying her schedule, hesitating, and waiting for the right moment. That day, he purposefully drove from the bar toward the bus stop, followed the bus, and then lurked before attacking Justine. She was the one he had been waiting for. The locals were shocked by such a horrific tragedy. Nothing like this had ever happened before in their quiet, peaceful neighborhood. Many people came to support the bereaved family at the farewell ceremony. White balloons were released into the sky, and some of her loved ones wore pink t-shirts with Justine's picture on them. The family of the deceased brought her body and buried her in their homeland in the Philippines. They stayed there for a while, but later moved back to Ireland in 2021, where there were more opportunities. They relocated to another city and changed jobs to escape the painful memories associated with the places they had left behind. Share your opinion in the comments and also put a like if this story seemed interesting to you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.